taken into care. That was all that was said to her. And then and there, they took the boy in bed. And while that was happening, the police went to her mother's house, because her mother was looking after the other two children, and they took the other two children. And she has never had access to those children since. Never. We've printed her story, which caused ructions, and a judge was moved because every piece of information used against this woman is fabricated, a pack of lies from start to finish. Sounds unbelievable, doesn't it? There must be something wrong with her. There isn't. She doesn't drink, she doesn't take drugs, she doesn't have multiple partners. She is a normal lady, separated from her previous husband. They've taken the 3 children. And every shred of evidence used against her is fraudulent. This is another case. I've been intimately involved with this one. I've given a talk on it before I got an injunction slapped on me. This lady had a daughter. The daughter was ill. And I'll tell you what was the matter with her, as they later found out. She had a thing called Zollinger's disease, which is multiple perforations of the gut, like multiple ulcers. Intensely painful, so painful that the pain eventually radiates right through to your back. She went into a series of South Wales hospitals where she wasn't treated. We've got the documents where we show that there was no diagnosis, but they prescribed a huge cocktail of drugs. They tried to get the mother at one stage to give her a dose of oral morphine. If the mother had given it to her, she would have killed the daughter. She was run around hospitals, the daughter was in pain, she couldn't work at school properly, social services got involved, nightmare. Because the next minute is that in taking the girl to America to get a medical opinion, social services went to America with no legal, lawful documentation and took the girl away at gunpoint because they got the American police involved. And I have sat in a court with this lady twice or 3 times now, and in the last case, because she now acts for herself, she proved in that court that when the girl was taken away, the local authority had no legal power to do so whatsoever. The judge was happy to allow the local authority to have witnesses, but he wouldn't allow the mother to have witnesses, even though they were local councillors prepared to testify on oath that their council had broken the law. Welcome to secret courts. This is a small selection of the drugs this poor girl was prescribed, and that is a statement by a judge, allegedly, trying to clear his yardarm, as they say in the Navy, by saying that when they went to America, there wasn't really any breach of order, i.e. it wasn't his fault. Nevertheless, that girl has never been returned to her mother, and she's now over 18, and she has been turned. Your mother doesn't love you, why would she leave you in this home? This is a little note this girl wrote. She wrote a series of them. And I tell you, I still find it difficult. Just read what she says. She was never allowed in a court to say she wanted to go home. When they brought her back from America, they put this girl in a psychiatric institute. They told her, "You are imagining your pain." What about that for mental cruelty? And eventually, though, social services ended up putting her on a cocktail of drugs till they realized that what the mother had discovered in America, Zollinger's, was true. There wasn't any apology and the girl was never given back. And she wrote about 20 pleading letters like this. And she tells about social services people laughing at her. A Plymouth couple, I've got an injunction, can't talk about them. Their baby was ill. Derriford Hospital. The hospital said it was a cancer, a form of cancer. They wanted to do chemo, all sorts of things. The parents just didn't believe it. And they said, no, we don't want the treatment. Bang, in came social services. Baby taken away, subsequently proved the hospital diagnosis was wrong and the parents were right. Never had the baby back. And the mother has subsequently had 2 further babies, and they are taken away as well. On the last occasion, social services went into the delivery room to tell the mother, having she'd just given birth, that that baby was also going to be taken away. And one of the 2 social workers that went into the delivery room had shingles. Because they're Christians, there are in the notes intimations that they're mentally ill. If you're a Christian, you've got to be mentally ill. This is a fantastic lady. I speak to her a lot, a 10-year-old son taken. If I had more time, I could show you more. Within a few weeks of disappearing into a care home, he's thin, weak, and he's so frightened he's wetting himself. But she said, the scary thing is, Brian, they're hunting me for my 3-year-old. Hunting. And this is the word that the parents use. And what fascinated me is people who gave me information, different parts of the country, it was a template operating. They'd never colluded or talked to each other, but their stories as to how the social services took their children tied in. This is a French lady, married originally to an Englishman living in this country. She discovers their 2 girls are being abused. She goes to social services and the police for help. The case is twisted 180 degrees, because this is the technique. And eventually it destroys her health. So they've now got her pinned as a sort of psychiatric case. Tough lady, Corinne. She fought and eventually, much to her amazement, was awarded custody of the girls and permission to go to France. She took them to France, and within a few months, the father had fought through the French courts, and they re-awarded him custody, even though he was the man abusing the children. I've got some photographs which I'd love to show you, but I don't think you want to see them. Collusion between judges, England, France. Collusion between French social services and English social services. Interesting. And this is a little girl. This is 30 years ago, but this case is very, very important. Her name's Helena By. And basically she had an adverse reaction to I can't remember the name of the procedure, but you put a dye basically in to see what's going on, and she had a reaction to that. And then the hospital in Bridgend made a diagnosis that really she had epilepsy, and they put her on Epilim. And they put her on a dose that made that girl ill, terribly ill, sick, unwell, in pain, headaches. And when the parents said we knew something was wrong and they tried to get her off that medication, they were told, if you try and get her off the medication, we will take your daughter from you. So in the end, they made a decision and they went with the hospital treatment, and eventually the girl died under quite horrible circumstances. The hospital lied over the time at which the girl died. They didn't tell the parents for some time. And the reason they did that is because whilst they were delaying telling the parents the girl was actually dead and preventing them from seeing her, they were stripping body parts out of her. All provable. And they still haven't got her back. They've got bits of her back, but they haven't got all of her back. This is not an isolated case, but I haven't got time to tell you more. This one's slightly different, but it shows the establishment working. This is a lady called Anne Gregg and her daughter Holly. And when Holly was 6 years old, she started to be abused by her father and a ring of people, including carers, nurses, somebody involved with the police, somebody involved with the Scottish judiciary. And although Holly is Down syndrome, she has a fantastic memory. She knows what was done with her. She knows where it was done. She knows who did it. She knows their names. She knows the relationships between people. She remembers it all. And there has never been a proper police investigation. This is typical. And despite the fact there's been no police investigation, this lady has been awarded £8,500 by a criminal injuries board. How can you award criminal injuries unless there's been a crime? Well, if you want to cover up dirty dealings, including paedophilia, by people in the police and the judiciary, this is how you do it. And the good old BBC dropped this like a hot potato, because Anne, in fighting for justice for her daughter, found herself surrounded by 8 people in her flat one afternoon. They forced her to the ground, they stuck a needle in her backside, and she woke up in a psychiatric unit. And they gave her a few days in a psychiatric unit to warn her off trying to get justice for her daughter. That is the article in the latest UK column, and we've brought some of those papers here so you can read the story for yourself. It is disgusting. They went for help all over the place, and a month ago they went and, well, they wrote to Mr. Alex Salmon, because all this took place in Aberdeen area, Grampian Police. And it took 1 month for his office to come back to say that it was receiving attention. A girl was raped between the ages of 6 and 14, vulnerable, Down syndrome, raped and abused by members of the people who should be protecting us. And yet it takes them a month to look at it. This is my view. Can you recognize it? It's a wet fish. It's a salmon. This man is big trouble because he is prepared to cover up. He must be covering it up because he's not investigating it. And although this incident has happened north of the border, I can tell you that although they are now living in England, English police are still not assisting matters to get justice for this girl who was raped repeatedly, gang raped. How can this happen in this country? Well, it happens because Jack Straw and others have created a secret court system where you cannot get justice. Right, I've got about 7 minutes. Call it 10, happy with that. Have I got a mic still? What's happened to it? Oh, okay. Right, this guy, wonderful man, lives down in Monaco, written this book, 434 pages, a lot of detail in there, and I've used some of his material, and I'm delighted to give him a big push there. These are key things to do with attributes of people involved in child snatching. They're very cold. People within social services or the police or the judiciary, they lack emotion. Very, very cold. Yeah? They lie, they falsify documents, they bully, they intimidate, they threaten, they spread false rumors to help get the children away. They turn children against the parents. I just told you the one, mummy doesn't love you because mummy's just had another baby, so she obviously doesn't like you. These people are somehow being taught how to use psychological bullying. And in some cases, the mothers have told us, and they usually say, I'm not sure I should tell you this because you'll think I'm a bit loopy, but it was scary when they came because they were like little robots. Now, I will tell you what this is. It's the result of programming. These people are being given neurolinguistics, which are changing their values. And the Nazis did this. Now, I'm going to go very quickly because I want to build the picture. And I've only got 5 minutes. This is Ian Joseph's guide to survival. And this man knows what he's talking about. He's legally trained, and he's helped and is still helping a large number of mothers and parents. Never contact social services. You couldn't get a better statement than that. Yeah, don't sign anything. Don't give your children up, even if it's supposed to be temporary. Refuse to be assessed by psychiatrists. Why? Because they lie about you. And don't let them access to your medical records. And don't write any letters. So everything he is saying is stay away from these people. They're dangerous. But aren't social services supposed to be the people who look after our children? Now I'm going to do the impossible. I've got 4 minutes to tell you what's really going on, because I want to get your minds this wide instead of just thinking about incidents with children. This lady worked for the European Union in Romania. She discovered what we were told about the children was not entirely true. We were given a picture of disaster where many of the orphanages were trying to help the children with limited means. What she discovered, though, was consultancies and charities were helping traffic Romanian children. She discovered on some of the orphanages there was a bolt-on pharmaceutical laboratory where they were testing the children, and including in some cases wiring up the children with electrodes when they were introduced to prospective parents. She's exposed it. She lost her job in the EU. She receives death threats. She is now tracking the paedophile networks at the highest levels of the European Union, and that includes Britain. If you go to the Communist Manifesto, look at what it says in number 2. Abolish the family. The Frankfurt School, psychiatrists, actually studied the destruction of society by moral, family, and spiritual breakdown. Nice people. When the war came, they moved abroad, America, Britain, all over the place. But that is their mentality, vicious. Here's the Communist International. It's going to produce a regional union. It's going to level the economies. That's what's happening to us now. We're being suppressed. And the regions are going to form a new world order. I haven't made that up. That is straight out of their Comintern program for 1928. People train in this stuff for warfare. This was Stalin's advisor talking about psychopolitics, causing chaos, distrust, economic depression. This is at the cover of the original Nazi document talking about the formation of a European Union. Just remember the Bilderbergers that I've talked about. If you read that document, it says a lot of things, including single transport system. You've heard it. This is the blueprint for the EU. This is one of our own army psychiatrists, and the document is 1940. And in it, he's talking about how psychiatrists will penetrate society to re-engineer us into thinking and acting the right way. And he says we've made a useful attack. This man intimately linked with the Tavistock Institute, which is itself linked with the formation of the NHS. There's a dirty little trail here. And he was eventually involved with the World Mental Health Federation. By mental health, they mean you're healthy when you're in the new society. This is a document talking about a plan to destroy Western society. It came from a Soviet dissident, and surprise, surprise, it says they're going to destroy families. It's happening. You're watching it. The Fabians are creeping socialism. Here's Tony, because he was chairman, and you can trust him. These people are all Marxists, Leninists, or Trotskyists. You can check it for yourselves. New Labour is Marxist, and even some of the national newspapers are starting to pick it up. Miliband and Mandelson, unbelievably dangerous. And if you're worried about the Tories, I think you're looking at something which is what? Fascism? Question mark there. Oswald Mosley, what was he? Well, okay, also leader of the British fascist movement, but he gets great praise from Michael Foot, Labour leader, left-wing liberal. So these people are all intertwined. This book puts it together. I'm sorry it's such a poor picture, but a guy called Christopher Story wrote a very detailed political analysis which said simply the Berlin Wall came down, communism didn't, and that is absolutely true, and I can tell you that as an ex-military person. What it's done is changed form. Hitler's Germany was built on Marxism. The Soviet Union was Marxist-based, and what you are seeing is the full system arriving. Children are to be re-engineered into the new society. You are not going to be allowed to keep your children. And that is the big picture, and they are testing the water at the moment by taking a few thousand children away from people under a false pretext. If you think I'm joking or I'm water mitty, everything I've said is provable. You can research it yourself. But I tell you, if we could get over the gagging orders, I could present you with this high of information showing that courts are lying in order to help take children away. I'm at the end. Thank you very much.